snow?
Oh, lots of sight.
Really? That's good.
Get full.
Right. How many do you have? Right. Wow. Oh, okay. Right.
This kind of weather.
Right.
Now what about you all? Manage?
We managed. We stayed in tight.
Nice.
Close to home.
And then we have one with us remote.
Right. What was
So
the
she
name?
should be, Linda Shossman, she should be kind of getting
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I'm keeping an eye on it. Thank you for doing that. Let me ask you, will you go before OPC or OPC go?
I'll be before.
Perfect. Because I've got you loaded up. Oh, these guys sent me. Just got out of a meeting. Think it does. Hey. Hey, you want some of these? I'm getting PowerPoints, a couple PowerPoints from before them to you.
Okay.
One from OPC and one from,
Your opening statements.
yeah, do you need them or?
Yeah, go ahead and forward it to me, that way if they do reference exhibits, I've got them.
I'll do it when I look at mine. I'm sorry? Yeah, yeah, everything's over. Oh, nice.
Yep. Good afternoon. Linda, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can. Do you want to turn your camera on and,
Yes. Hello, can you see me too?
we can. Yep, very good.
All right, thank you. I cannot see the hearing room.
It's just on the, well, I don't know what he's done with it so far.
Oh.
Oh, there you go.
Right, now I can see it. Yeah, there, I saw it there briefly, yes.
Very good.
Great,
Okay, so I think you're set up. Anything else you need?
great, wonderful. And you can hear me, my volume's good and everything?
All good. Yep.
All right, perfect. Well, I'll go on mute, I'll go off camera, and then be ready for when needed.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Stream check 3-4.
All right, let's bring this proceeding to order and go on the record. Good afternoon. Today is January 28th, 2026.
This meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
The time is 1:30 p.m. The commission has set this time for an evidentiary hearing in the case captioned as "In the matter of the petition of Missouri American Water Company for approval to establish a water and sewer infrastructure rate adjustment." The acronym for that is WSIRA, and we often refer to that as WSIRA. It's our case number WR-2025-0345. My name is Ken Sire, and I am the regulatory law judge presiding over this hearing. The hearing is taking place in the Public Service Commission hearing room, room 310 of the Governor Office Building in Jefferson City, Missouri. Before we get too far into this, let's have counsel for the parties make their entries of appearance, beginning with Missouri American Water Company.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dean Cooper from the law firm of Bryden, Swearingen, England, P.C., appearing on behalf of Missouri American Water Company, along with Ms. Rachel Niemeyer of Missouri American Water Company.
All right. Thank you. For the staff of the commission.
Casey Aslin for commission staff.
All right. And for the Office of the Public Counsel.
Good afternoon, Lindsay Van Gerpen on behalf of the OPC.
Okay. Thank you. For those in the hearing room, I ask that everyone silence their cell phones and mobile devices. And if you are connected via WebEx, I ask that you mute your microphone when not speaking. We do have, I know we will have a witness appearing via WebEx today, and there are commissioners that are participating via WebEx today. Let me ask the parties, is there any preliminary matters we need to take up? Okay. Do the parties wish to give opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Then, Mr. Cooper, go ahead.
Just a minute, Your Honor. We're going to hand out copies of the PowerPoint presentation. May it please the Commission. The issue before you today is fairly isolated. Should the tax gross up on income taxes be included in the WSIRA revenue requirement? And it just kind of goes without saying that there's nothing like income tax calculation and accumulated deferred income taxes to spice up an afternoon. So here we go. Just to kind of set the stage for where this disagreement figures into the process, the revenue requirement, of course, is at a high level, the rate base times the pre-tax return plus expenses, and again, that equals the revenue requirement. In this case, there's no disagreement amongst the parties as to the rate base or the expenses to be included. The only disagreement is over the proper pre-tax return to be applied to the rate base. Missouri American and the staff agree the pre-tax return should be 8.47%. OPC believes the pre-tax return should be 8.12%. The difference is fully attributable to the income tax gross up that was referenced previously. Missouri American and the staff use a tax gross up of 1.3130. OPC uses a tax gross up of 1.2384. In rate making, income tax expense is included in the revenue requirement. The revenues included to cover these income taxes are treated as taxable income. And because the income taxes are not themselves tax deductible, an additional amount is added to the utilities revenue requirement to ensure there's enough revenue for the income tax expense. We provide an example on this slide of what happens if the commission were to authorize $100 of income tax expenses using both the company's gross up percentage or gross up of 1.3130 versus what would happen using the OPC's tax gross up of 1.2384. Ultimately, it would result, the OPC calculation would result in only $94 being available for tax expense. The tax gross up supported by the company and staff ensures the utility retains the commission authorized amount of income tax expense. Now, what are the deferred taxes? Any revenue requirement must include income tax expense for the utility to earn, again, the authorized return. The income tax expense will be primarily made up of both current income tax expense, tax payable now, and deferred income tax expense, tax payable later. Deferred income taxes are primarily created due to the significant differences in depreciation of utility plant for income tax purposes versus depreciation rates for book purposes. For Missouri American, this is driven by the tax repairs deduction as well as accelerated tax depreciation. Ultimately, the current income taxes plus the deferred income taxes are included in the revenue requirement. Again, deferred income tax expense is the recognition of the taxes to be paid in the future. When a company incurs deferred income tax expense, these amounts are accumulated in what we referred to before as the accumulated deferred income taxes, or ADIT. ADIT ultimately is a reduction to rate base, resulting in a lower revenue requirement for the customer. In this case, ADIT reduces the rate base by about $18.5 million, which translates into a benefit to customers of a reduction in the revenue requirement of over $1.5 million. The tax gross up is a fundamental part of the rate-making process and the calculation of income taxes. The WSIRA statutes require inclusion of the state, federal, and local income or excise taxes as applicable to the WSIRA revenues. You'll see below, we've provided some excerpts from those WSIRA statutes, both talking in terms of the pre-tax weighted cost of capital involvement in the determination of appropriate pre-tax revenues, as well as the state, federal, and local income or excise taxes applicable to such revenues that are required or are a part of appropriate pre-tax revenues. And then lastly, the identification of the factor of the current state, federal, and local income or excise tax rates that would be used in determining the appropriate pre-tax revenues. I would mention that in OPC witness Riley's rebuttal testimony, he attempts to provide an additional definition of appropriate in this context by citing to some dictionary definitions, which is really not anything that needs to be done in this case. As exhibited here, the statute already defines appropriate pre-tax revenues. There's no reason for any further definitional reference. I would also point out that in the not too distant past, in the Confluence Rivers rate case, WR 2023-0006, and this is the report and order on page 16, the commission recognized that income tax expense, it said a hypothetical construct used in rate making, is the result of multiplying the rate base by the commission authorized rate of return and then the statutory tax rate. This provides utility recovery of the income tax expense associated with its authorized return on its investment. The commission also noted that this is the only income tax expense included in rates, and there is no component within that methodology that considers the actual revenues or deductions reported on federal or state income tax returns. One last point we'd like to make is that in Missouri American's last rate case, WR 2024-0320, the commission approved a 7.00% after-tax return for use in Missouri American's WSIRAs. By not including the full tax gross up, OPC would have the company earn a 6.73% after-tax return. And the calculation of that's provided on this slide as well as in the direct testimony of Ms. Schlesman, who will testify later today. because of the statutory definitions, because of the order in the last rate case identifying the after-tax return, the commission should order the pre-tax return of 8.47% that's been agreed to by Missouri American and staff. And again, as a part of the statute, as a part of the stipulation and agreement approved by the commission, and in that case, supported by OPC in the company's last rate case. And that's all I have at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Mr. Cooper? All right. Thank you. Ms. Haslam, would you like to make an opening statement?
Good afternoon, and may it please the commission. My name is Casey Aslan, and I am here representing commission staff. Mr. Cooper has just explained very well the issue at hand today, so I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible. There's just one issue before you today. Should the gross up on income taxes be included in the WSIRA revenue requirement? Staff's position and that of the company is yes. The tax gross up factor is used to calculate additional taxes needed on the overall revenue requirement in both general rate cases and WSIRA cases. Taxes included in staff's WSIRA recommendation include both current and deferred income taxes. Therefore, it is staff's position that if taxes are to be included in rates, there should be a tax gross up applied to the overall revenue requirement, whether in a general rate case or a WSIRA case. Including taxes in the revenue requirement is not dependent on whether Missouri American is currently making tax payments to the IRS, and this is a common approach. As Mr. Cooper stated, as part of the approved stipulation and agreement in Missouri American's most recent rate case, which was WR 2024-0320, the parties, including the Office of Public Counsel, agreed to an overall post-tax weighted average cost of capital of 7% and agreed to using this for WSIRA purposes. Public Counsel's position of excluding the tax gross-up factor from the WSIRA revenue requirement changes the post-tax return to 6.73%, which is less than the 7% commission-approved post-tax return. While he did not file testimony in this case, staff has Keith Majors here today to answer any questions that you may have on staff's position. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Aslan?
If I may, Judge.
Go ahead, Commissioner Mitchell.
Thanks so much for your opening. Just want to make sure that I understand what's been said. The primary difference in what the company and staff recommend for the tax gross up multipliers lies in the difference between accelerated depreciation used for tax purpose and depreciation that is used for book purpose. Is that where the difference in the two multipliers is?
I am not certain, but maybe you could ask Keith Majors or another witness that question. I'm sorry.
Okay, I will.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Van Gorpen.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm going to pass out our presentation first as well. Good afternoon, Commissioners, and may it please the Commission. My name is Lindsay Van Gerpen, and I'm here this afternoon on behalf of the OPC. So I'd like to begin this afternoon by posing a simple question. If a company does not remit payment for income taxes to the IRS, does the Commission still need to gross up the current income taxes? The OPC's answer to this question is simply no. The Commission does not need to include a tax gross up when payments are not actually being remitted to the IRS. So to understand the OPC's position, we need to dive a little deeper into two concepts: income taxes and the tax gross up. So let's look at income taxes first. Now, when I refer to income taxes, I'm referring to the amount included in a utility's revenue requirement to pay income taxes to the IRS. Now, the WSIRA statutes require recovery of income taxes. So to be clear, the OPC is not challenging Missouri American's recovery of the income taxes in this case. Rather, our argument is strictly limited to the tax gross up, and the WSIRA statutes don't explicitly require recovery of an income tax gross up. So what is an income tax gross up? So the income tax gross up exists because of a problem. The IRS considers the income tax included in the revenue requirement to be taxable income to the utility. So the solution to that problem was to include an additional amount to pay the income taxes collected in the revenue requirement. And that additional amount is the tax gross up. Now, because it's collected to pay the income taxes on the income taxes, this is sometimes called tax on tax. So that's a little bit difficult to understand. So let's look at an example. And so for this simplified example, we can say that the Commission has authorized a utility to recover $100,000 in revenue. To calculate the income taxes on those revenues, we simply multiply that $100,000 by the composite tax rate of 23.84%, and we find that the utility would need to collect $23,840 to pay the income taxes on the $100,000 in revenue. So as I mentioned, the IRS sees that $23,840 as income to the utility, so it generates additional taxes. So to calculate that, we multiply the $23,840 by the composite tax rate again, and we see that the utility now needs to collect an additional about $5,600. So the IRS will also see that amount as additional income, so we continue the process. Again, multiplying that $5,600 by the composite tax rate to get approximately $1,355. Now this process continues again and again and again and again until the amount is de minimis, and we ultimately find that the utility needs to collect $131,300, and that would allow it to realize its $100,000 in revenues, to pay the $23,840 in taxes, and then the remaining $7,460 is the tax gross up. So to be clear, the $7,460 exists only because the IRS considers the additional taxes to be additional income to the utility. So the key here is if the utility does not actually remit the $23,840 to the IRS, it doesn't have to pay the gross up. So that brings me to the core of the OPC's position, Missouri American's tax position. So as Mr. Riley pointed out in his pre-filed testimony, based on information from its most recent rate case, Missouri American does not currently remit payment to the IRS for income taxes. So because Missouri American does not currently remit payment for any taxes to the IRS, it's made whole when it recovers its WSIRA plant costs plus the income taxes. So if the Commission still allows Missouri American to collect the income tax gross up, the tax gross up will be profit to Missouri American at that point. So that brings me to the OPC's position, and really our position is pretty simple. Missouri American does not remit payment for income taxes to the IRS. And because there's no remittance for payment, no gross-up is required to make Missouri American whole. And for that reason, the commission should exclude the gross-up on the income tax calculation and should reduce the WSIRA revenue requirement by $430,535. So Mr. Riley will be appearing on behalf of the OPC this afternoon. Mr. Riley has years of experience in utility regulation and is also a certified public accountant, or CPA. So I encourage you to ask him any questions that you have. And I will also attempt to answer any questions that you have at this time.
All right, thank you. Are there questions from the commissioners? All right, hearing none, thank you, Ms. Van Gerpen.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cooper, would you like to call your first witness?
We would call Mr. Brian LeGrand.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this hearing today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you.
Judge, we're going to have two pieces of testimony from Mr. LeGrand, his direct and rebuttal. Do you want to just, and we have not pre-marked any of the testimony in this case, do we just want to do that sequentially and start with numbers 1 and 2 and go from there?
Yes.
Okay. So I would take it then that his direct testimony would be Exhibit 1 and his rebuttal testimony would be Exhibit 2?
Yes, that makes sense to me.
Would you state your name, Mr. LeGrand?
Yes, Brian LeGrand, L-A-G-R-A-N-D.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Employed by American Water Works Service Company. I'm the Director of Rates and Regulatory for Missouri American Water.
Have you caused to be prepared for the purposes of this proceeding certain direct and rebuttal testimony in question and answer form?
I have.
And it's your understanding, I suppose, that that testimony has been marked as Exhibits 1 and 2 for identification?
Yes, it is.
Do you have any changes that you would like to make to that testimony at this time?
I do not.
If I were to ask you the questions contained in Exhibits 1 and 2 today, would your answers be the same?
They would?
And are those answers true and correct to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I would offer Exhibits 1 and 2 into evidence and tender Mr. LeGrand for cross-examination.
All right. Are there any objections to the admission of those exhibits into evidence? All right. Exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted. Ms. Aslan, do you have cross for the witness?
No questions.
Ms. Van Gerpen?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly. And to begin, we would like to mark an exhibit. So I think we're 300 per the procedural order. Okay. So I would like to mark this as 302, if that's okay. Good afternoon, Mr. LeGrand.
Good afternoon.
Would you agree with me that this is an excerpt of Missouri American Water Company's 2024 annual report filed before the commission?
It appears to be yes.
And this is the most recent annual report that Missouri American has filed before the commission, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. The 2025 won't be filed till later this year.
Thank you. Your Honor, that's the only questions I have, and I'd like to offer this Exhibit 302 for admittance into the record.
Any objections? All right, Exhibit 302 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? All right. I have a few questions myself. Mr. LeGrand, would you agree that in determining income tax to be paid in any year for both federal and state income tax returns, allowable expense deductions are subtracted from gross revenues to determine taxable income?
I would say, well, first I would say that the company's witness, Schlesman, is the tax expert, but conceptually, yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. Would you agree that for determining taxable income, if allowable expense deductions exceed gross revenue, a negative net taxable income is allowed to be carried forward for income tax purposes?
That's getting out of my area of expertise, so I would defer to Ms. Schlesman for that.
Fair enough.
That question.
Referring to the company's application, do you have that application and the appendices?
I don't have the application in front of me. I know one of the appendices is attached to my testimony, but just one page of one of them.
All right.
But so we may get lucky, but
the appendix that I would like to ask a couple of questions about is Appendix C, and it's the first page is headed WSIRA Revenue Requirements Calculation.
yes, that's actually attached to my testimony.
Okay.
Schedule BWL2.
Okay. For the sake of expediency, do any of the parties need a copy of that appendix?
Judge, if you're working off page 1 that's included in Mr. LeGrand's testimony, I think we're good. But if you go beyond page 1, it's going to
All right, it is
be
actually
a different
page 2.
answer.
It's actually page 2, so. Do you, Mr. LeGrand, need a copy of that?
I do.
Okay. Mr. LeGrand, you're familiar with that page of the appendix?
I am.
Okay. Since the time that the application was filed, would there be any changes to this page?
No.
Okay.
Well, excuse me. Let me rephrase that. When we filed the application, at the time, that includes 3 months of actual and 3 months of estimated expenses. We true that up during the course of the case. So there is a final version that if this is the one from the original application, the final version actually will be a little bit different than this.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to line 62. It's labeled total tax deductions.
Yes.
And that amount in the far right column, the total amount, is $78,853,300. Correct?
Correct.
All right. Is that related to accelerated depreciation applicable to WSIRA plant additions in this case?
Yeah, so that's actually made up of two components. The first one, you'd see on line 34, which is the repairs deduction. And then then on line 53, you see the regular tax depreciation. Those two taken together are the total of the tax deductions.
You said line 53?
Yeah, line 34
Mm-hmm.
and line 53.
53, okay.
And then I guess plus line 60, which kind of reduces that a little bit, but those are what make up line 62.
Okay. Farther down that page, on line 90, there's the line labeled book/tax depreciation temporary difference.
Yes.
And that shows a negative amount of $77,352,522, correct?
Yes.
Does that amount represent the difference between the WSIRA plant additions straight line depreciation expense that will be used for rate making and accelerated depreciation expense deduction used for income tax purposes?
Yes, that's the difference between line 83 and line 62.
All right, thank you. And then even farther down on that page, the very last line, 103, labeled net deferred income taxes. That shows a total of negative $18,440,941.
Yes.
Okay. Does that amount represent the amount of income taxes Missouri American will be required to pay in the future to compensate for the accelerated depreciation income tax deduction that it will take for the WSIRA plant additions?
Well, that's the deferred taxes, the deferred tax liability that reduces rate base. In his opening, Mr. Cooper referenced that. And in the final number, it's a little bit different than that, but it's approximately 18 million or so. And so that accumulated deferred income tax amount reduces the rate base and lowers the customer revenue requirement, by about $1.5 million or so.
All right. Those are all the questions I have. Ms. Aslan, do you have any follow-up questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Ms. Van Gerpen?
Could we have just one moment, Your
Sure.
Honor? Thank you. No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Cooper, do you have redirect?
I do not. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. LeGrand. You're excused.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Cooper, you can call your next witness.
We would call Linda Schlesman, who is appearing via WebEx.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great.
Would you raise your right hand to be sworn in, please? Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you.
Judge, my plan is to identify Ms. Schlesman's direct testimony as Exhibit 3 and her rebuttal as Exhibit 4. And I'd note that her rebuttal has both public and confidential versions.
All right. That'd be fine.
Ms. Schlesman, would you state your name for us again
Linda Schlesman.
and spell your last name?
SCHLESSMAN.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm the Director for Taxes Regulatory for American Water Works Service Company.
And you're appearing on behalf of Missouri American Water Company in this case?
Yes.
And have you caused to be prepared for the purposes of this case certain direct and rebuttal testimony in question and answer form?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that that testimony has been marked as Exhibits 3 and 4 for identification?
Yes.
Do you have any changes that you would like to make to that testimony at this time?
No.
If I were to ask you the questions which are contained in Exhibits 3 and 4 today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And are those answers true and correct to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would offer Exhibits 3 and 4, I guess really 3P or I'm sorry.
4P and 4C.
4P and 4C into evidence and tender the witness for cross-examination.
All right. Any objections? All right. Exhibits 3, 4P, and 4C are admitted into evidence. Ms. Aslan, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Ms. Van Gerpen?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Any questions from the commissioners? All right. Hearing none, Ms. Schlesman, I assume you're on and heard my questions earlier to Mr. LeGrand. And
Yes, I did.
He kind of deferred those to you. So I'll go ahead and repeat those two questions. In determining income tax to be paid in any year for both federal and state income tax returns, would you agree that allowable expense deductions are subtracted from gross revenues to determine taxable income?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. Would you also agree that for determining taxable income, if allowable expense deductions exceed gross revenue, a negative net taxable income is allowed to be carried forward for income tax purposes?
I do agree with that, and I would add to that for Missouri American Water specifically, because it is a part of the American Water Group and a consolidated return, that when looking at Missouri American Water specifically, their losses would be go to the entire group and be used towards the consolidated taxable income. And because of that, Missouri American Water alone does not carry forward those losses to be used. And generally in tax accounting, one would record a deferred tax asset to use those later. But because it's able to be used by the bigger group, there is no recording of a deferred tax asset on a standalone basis.
Okay. So another way to think about this, if I understand this correctly, is the company doesn't lose its allowable expense deduction in a given year if its revenues don't exceed the allowable expense deductions. Would that be correct?
Yes, I agree with that it will be able to use that on the consolidated tax return and will not lose that.
Okay. Those are the only questions I had. Ms. Aslan, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, thank you.
And Ms. Van Gerpen?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Cooper, do you have redirect?
Very, very briefly. It was mentioned earlier, or there was a discussion about if the deductions exceed gross income, whether there's a loss, correct? That was from the regulatory law judge.
Yes.
And
yeah, I recall that.
And the implication, I think, is that there would be no income tax in that situation. Is that correct?
There would be no current income tax, but there is tax expense, because that is a timing difference of deduction. Deduction in totality is no different between book and tax, only the timing of it. So the tax expense is in total, both current and deferred, does not change. Only the current is what is affected in that scenario when there is a loss situation.
And the piece that's not current, where is that identified on the company's records?
That's identified in deferred tax expense, and that is, presented or booked into accumulated deferred income taxes, and to be paid later. And that is what is, the company acknowledging that we'll be paying that later is reducing rate base with that accumulated deferred income tax, as a credit to revenue requirement.
And there's this implication that there's no current income tax, but I think you discuss in your testimony that there will be tax due with the next American Water and in turn Missouri American Water tax returns, correct?
Yes, I do discuss that under the corporate alternative minimum tax regime, that there is, cash payments to the government because of that alternative minimum tax, and Missouri American Water has a share in that, as well as the greater group.
And again, you don't believe that that is determinative to the issue in this case, correct?
No, I do not. I do not think that the fact that we pay the government in 1 year or not in another should be what is driving the need for a gross up. The gross up is, inseparable from the tax expense, because along with tax expense comes the inability to deduct that tax expense. So whether or not we're making cash payments is not relevant to that rate-making practice.
So ultimately, those taxes, because or the dollars associated with taxes are not deductible in their own, at least it's the company's position that the gross up factor needs to be taken into account.
Yes, and I also want to point out that through the reduction to rate base, which is accumulated deferred income taxes, which provide a credit benefit in rate base for taxes we have not yet remitted to the government, those are also grossed up. That credit is also grossed up. So, customers not harmed by the fact that we include a gross up in our revenue requirement, because they're receiving a credit for those taxes that haven't been remitted, the gross up on the taxes that haven't been remitted in ADIT or accumulated deferred income taxes.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark an exhibit, if we could. And this will be, let's call it gross up example. How about? Yeah, I believe it'll be exhibit 5.
Okay.
Ms. Lessman, do you have in front of you a document that in the upper right-hand corner says case number WR-2025-0345 and MAWC hearing exhibit?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is a example of how the gross up is incorporated into the revenue requirement on the accumulated deferred income taxes portion of rate base.
And was that prepared by you?
It was, yes.
And again, this relates back to what you were just describing, correct? In terms of how the gross up is ultimately a part of the, or there is a benefit associated with the ADIT that includes the gross up in a general rate case. Is that correct?
That's correct. What is being demonstrated here is that the piece of ADIT that is reducing rate base, if we were to look at the pieces separately between what's in rate base, and we have our property, plant, and equipment, and our ADIT, if you look at the ADIT in isolation, which is reducing rate base, and we're multiplying that by rate of return, we are also grossing up that credit. And what that signifies is, and what the company's acknowledging, is that there's a piece of the gross up that's been collected that has not yet been remitted to the government. And we acknowledge that, and so we provide for those deferred taxes, the piece that hasn't been remitted yet, we provide a gross up credit to that piece in the revenue requirement. And this is showing what those pieces look like in this example if we were to pull apart rate base.
Your Honor, I would offer Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Are there any objections?
Your Honor, I'm not sure what the objection would be. What we certainly have not had a chance to review this document, and certainly have no opportunity to respond to it. So that I would like at least to be noted.
Right, and I do not have to rule on admission at this time. We can discuss this at the end of the hearing today, as far as how much time you might need.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Cooper?
No, nothing else, Your Honor.
All right. Given this introduction of this exhibit, do the parties need any follow-up questions for the witness?
Your Honor, could we have just maybe a 5-minute recess?
Sure.
Thank you.
Let's go off the record and reconvene at 2:25. Going off the record. Back on the record. Ms. Van Gerpen, do you have questions?
Yes, briefly. Thank you, Your Honor.
Let's make sure okay, there she is.
Hello,
Hello, good afternoon, Ms. Schlesman.
good afternoon.
So I have just one question. When the company calculates ADIT, or accumulated deferred income tax, it does not include the gross up in that initial calculation. Is that correct?
That's correct, because it would not be proper to do so, and actually this example in this hearing exhibit demonstrates that fact, where the first step is taking the accumulated deferred income tax and including that in rate base as a reduction to rate base, multiplying that by the rate of return to come up with the revenue requirement, and then applying the gross up, which is a benefit or a credit to the revenue acquirer to that amount. So we are grossing up that benefit only once, and so it would not be appropriate to gross up the ADIT in step one, because it will then be grossed up later in the calculation, again as a credit to revenue requirement.
So just so I understand that, when the ADIT balance is actually subtracted from rate base, it is not grossed up, correct?
Yeah, that's grossed up. That's correct, because it's going to be grossed up. That benefit will be grossed up later in the calculation.
No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cooper, can this witness be excused? Or do you have a question?
Could you give me just 1 minute?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do have a redirect question associated with that, if we could.
Go ahead.
Ms. Schlesman, you were describing the calculation that's been marked as Exhibit 5. What was your purpose for creating that? What was it in response to?
Right, so it was in response to a couple of things.
Your Honor.
First is
Your Honor, I think I would object to that. I mean, we had a single question on a piece of this calculation, so I would say that this question kind of goes beyond the scope of the cross.
Mr. Cooper.
I think it's all involved in in what's flowing from the exhibit that we've offered, but
I think all right, I'll sustain that objection. All right, so at this point, can this witness be excused?
I'm going to try again in a different way, Your
Oh,
Honor.
I see.
Ms. Schlesman, you had mentioned in response, I think, to Ms. Van Gerpen's question that only the deferred tax expense is added to ADIT, correct? There's no gross up in that piece.
that's correct, yes.
And
Yes,
likewise, when the deferred tax is paid, only the deferred tax expense is removed from ADIT, correct? There's no gross up piece removed at that point in time, correct?
that's correct as well, yes.
And is it true that the only time there's an opportunity to recover the gross up is at the point of initial rate-making treatment?
Yes, that I would agree with that statement.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Schlesman, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there a need for a break? Okay, it's looking like the answer is no. Mr. Cooper, my understanding is those were your witnesses?
That is correct, Your
Okay,
Honor.
then I did not. Commissioner Coleman very pertinently is asking if the court reporter needs a break. She's indicating no. All right, then Ms. Aslan, call your witness.
Staff calls Keith Majors.
Mr. Majors, would you raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today in this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Before we begin, I would want to mark our exhibits since we've not pre-marked those, and I'll be referring to the direct testimony of Carrie Roth as Exhibit 200, the rebuttal testimony of Amanda McMillan as Exhibit 201, and the amended staff recommendation as Exhibit 202. Mr. Majors, could you please state and spell your name for the court reporter?
Keith Majors, KEITHMAJORS.
And how are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by the Missouri Public Service Commission as a Utility Regulatory Audit Unit Supervisor in the Kansas City office.
And you did not prepare any pre-filed testimony in this case, correct?
I did not. I am adopting the testimony of Ms. Roth and Ms. McMillan in this case that was filed.
That was going to be my next question. Have you also reviewed the amended staff recommendation that was filed on December 9th of 2025?
Yes, I have. I have a copy of it.
And having reviewed both the direct and rebuttal testimony of staff and the amended staff recommendation, do you have any changes or corrections that you would make to any of those documents?
No, I do not.
And is the information contained in those documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, it is.
With that, I would offer exhibits 200, 201, and 202 and tender Mr. Majors for cross.
All right, are there any objections to the admission of those documents? All right, then exhibits 200, 201, and 202 are admitted into evidence. And Mr. Cooper, Ms. Niemeyer, do you have any questions for the witness?
We do, Your Honor. Mr. Majors, would you agree with me that staff in prior WSIRA cases and before that ISRIS cases applied the same tax gross-up methodology that's used by the company and staff in this case?
Yes, that's my understanding. I'm much more familiar with the ISRIS infrastructure system replacement surcharge cases that are filed before the commission, but that's my general understanding that the income tax gross-up methodology is the same for both surcharge mechanisms.
And is there any part of that methodology that considers the actual revenues or deductions reported on federal or state income tax returns?
No, they do not.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Van Gerpen, do you have questions?
I do, Your Honor. And again, I would like to mark an exhibit, and this, I believe, will be Exhibit 303 for the OPC. So, good afternoon, Mr. Majors.
Good afternoon.
I have a worksheet here that's been marked as Exhibit 303, 303 for the OPC, that I'd like to walk through with you. So, Mr. Majors, you've worked on general rate cases in your position with staff, correct?
Yes, I have.
And you're generally familiar with how staff calculates income tax expense and the revenue requirement, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
So looking at this worksheet, you would agree with me that the first row that's labeled A, it's entitled rate base. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And you would see that there are then two columns, one labeled OPC and one labeled staff/MAWC, which stands for Missouri American Water Company.
Yes.
And you see that the number for rate base is $123,010,057 in both columns, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So then moving down in row B, it's labeled post-tax rate of return per last order. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And that is 7% in both the OPC and the staff/MAWC column.
Yes, that's correct.
And you would agree with me that when we refer to post-tax, that means after taxes, correct?
Yes.
So I want to move down the worksheet to the next line, row C, and this is post-tax rate of return. And per this worksheet, that is row A, the rate base, times B, the post-tax rate of return of 7%. You
Yes.
see that? And again, that number, $8,610,703.99 is the same in both columns.
Yes, it is.
And so now moving down to item D, which is labeled interest expense, that is rate base times 2.3%.
Yes.
And again, the number is the same in both the OPC and the staff/Missouri American column, correct?
Yes.
So now we move to taxable income in row E. This is item C, post-tax rate of return minus the interest expense. And again, we have the same number for both OPC and staff and Missouri American, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So moving further down, we come to the income tax expense. And to calculate that, per the worksheet, it is the taxable income times the composite tax rate of 23.84%. Do you see that?
Yes.
And again, you would agree with me that is $1,378,303.09 in both columns, correct?
Yes, it is.
So now we come to item G, which is labeled income tax gross up, Missouri American, and that should really be staff/Missouri American only. And to calculate that per the worksheet, it is item E, the taxable income, times 7.46%. Do you see that?
Yes.
And so, again, we have a difference between the two columns here where there is a 0 for the Office of the Public Counsel and $431,297.86 for staff/Missouri American, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So to speed things up now a little bit, we come to net income, and that is simply item E, the taxable income, plus the income tax expense, plus the income tax gross up. And now we have differences between the OPC and staff/Missouri American column. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then again, we have the interest expense, which is the same as item D above, which is the rate base times 2.3%. And so that is the same in both columns. Do you see that?
Yes, that's correct.
And so to calculate the revenue requirement on capital, we would add the net income plus the interest expense to generate the revenue requirement on capital. Do you see that?
Yes, that's correct.
And there is a difference in the OPC column and the staff/Missouri American column.
Yes.
And so to determine the pre-tax rate of return, we would divide the revenue requirement on capital by the rate base. And that is the final column, or the final row, of the worksheet. Do you see that there?
Yes.
And you see that the OPC's is 8.12% and staff/Missouri Americans is 8.47%.
Yes, I see that.
And you would agree with me that, again, though those two numbers are different, we started with the same post-tax rate of return in row B, correct?
Yes.
And again, you would agree with me that the difference between the two columns results in row G, which is the income tax gross up.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Majors, Your Honor. I have no further questions, but I would move to admit this Exhibit 303 into the record.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, Exhibit 303 is admitted.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the commissioners for this witness?
Yes, Judge. Commissioner Kokemeyer here.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Majors.
Good afternoon.
Want to go back and talk about the question that Mr. Cooper just asked. And basically, what's the way the staff calculated this is the same way that they have in all other cases similar to this, correct?
Yes, the same general principle of a tax gross up is the same that we use in major rate cases and in staff's accounting schedules.
So nothing has changed the way the staff calculated this.
That's correct. Nothing has changed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Judge.
All right, any other commissioner questions? All right. Mr. Majors, I've got a couple of questions that are kind of general in nature and don't refer you or don't require you to refer to Ms. McMillan's testimony or that of Ms. Roth. During a rate case, does staff calculate the income tax gross up for plant additions?
Not specifically for plant additions. The income tax gross up is calculated on the in Schedule 11 in tax accounting schedules. It's really an automatic calculation, but it's based on the statutory tax rates. But it's not specifically calculated on the plant additions. It's really calculated on the net income as calculated on a go-forward basis.
Okay. And then a separate question, would a utility be able to recover adequate revenues to be made whole in regard to its commission authorized rate or rate of return or earnings on rate base without including the additional income tax gross up dollars?
No, they would not be made whole.
Okay. All right, Mr. Cooper, do you have any recross?
I do not.
Ms. Van Gerpen?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No redirect, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Majors. You are excused. And my understanding, Ms. Aslan, is you have no further witnesses testifying today?
That is correct.
All right. Okay, Ms. Van Gerpen, are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
The OPC would call Mr. John Riley to the stand.
Mr. Riley, would you raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Riley. Could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
John Riley, John Riley.
By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed with the Office of Public Counsel as utility supervisor.
And are you the same John Riley who caused to be prepared direct and rebuttal testimony in this case?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any corrections or additions to your written testimony?
I have one.
And what is that?
It was in rebuttal, page 4. Second line, the line reads, this 23.84% is the corporate tax rate. It should read, this 23.84% is the composite tax rate.
Thank you, Mr. Raleigh. And if I asked you the same questions that are in your written testimony today, would your answers be the same with the addition of that one correction in your rebuttal testimony?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, I would offer Exhibits 300, John Riley's direct, and Exhibit 301, his rebuttal, for admittance, and tender Mr. Riley for cross.
All right. Are there any objections to the omission of those two documents? Exhibits 300 and 301 are admitted. Ms. Aslan, do you have cross-examination?
No questions.
Mr. Cooper?
No questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? All right, I hear none. I have no questions myself. Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any further witnesses? All right. Now, earlier, Ms. Van Gerpen, you had an objection to Exhibit 5 and indicated, because you had not seen it prior to the hearing, that you may have an objection to that or may need some time to look at that. Do you need further time to take a look at that?
Yes, if we could, Your Honor.
All right. If it is acceptable to all the parties, if I do not receive an objection from you by the end of the business day tomorrow, I will admit that document.
That's fine.
Mr. Cooper, you,
Only that, if there is an objection, will you allow time for a response?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. In your procedural schedule that you proposed and the subsequent order setting the procedural schedule, the parties had in mind expedited transcripts that would be filed by next Tuesday, the 3rd. It is possible that those transcripts will be filed earlier than that because of the length of the hearing today. But in any case, I'm assured that no later than Tuesday, those will be filed in EFIS. And then, again, referring to the procedural schedule, briefs are due by February 10th. And the idea would be to have an order on the February 19th agenda. Does that sound reasonable, correct?
Correct. I think we have a reply brief, though, in there as well, don't we?
Do. Just a second. What was the date on the reply briefs?
It was pretty quick. It may have been noon on the day before. I don't have the, I'm sorry, Judge, I don't have the schedule in front of me.
I'm looking at the procedural schedule, and and this may be my mistake, but I only have briefs due February 10th at noon. I don't have a provision for reply briefs.
I apologize.
I think that's correct, Your Honor.
I apologize, Judge.
Okay. All right, is there anything further? All right, I'll adjourn the hearing. Let's go off the record.